Whoa, whoa, whoa. Oh,
Oh,
so,
well, oh, I see. I get a message saying we are being recorded.
oh,
Thank
are
you
you?
very much.
Yeah.
It's the CIA who do this.
No,
Uh,
it's
I
just
have the choice of understanding that fact or leaving.
yeah, you may leave if you want. No, if you don't want to be taped, you just let me know. But hello, Tim, Mr. Tim Blake. It's such an honor and a pleasure to finally contact you and see you and hear you. And I'm sure that most people in my Facebook group, the immense minority or la inmensa minoría, which is the name, it was one of the slogans of the radio station of Futuro FM, 89.9 FM in Chile, where we used to play, Blake's in Jerusalem and Excerpt. I dared making on that tape. And then I think I began playing Tim Blake on Concierto FM, which was the mother station to Futuro back in the mid 80s. I was really, really impressed when I first heard Crystal Machine. I didn't know this little small label egg. And then I began discovering Francois Briand and all those people. So welcome to my YouTube channel, where many people will be happy to hear your memories and the good times and the good music.
Well, I
Thank you.
hope they have a long time because the memories, I have lots of them,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
lots and lots.
yeah. Well, it might sound as an obvious question, but I think that most artists and musicians have been having a difficult times these days, as most of the rest of the people in the world. I think you like cooking and growing your own food. You usually post photos about your little farm, and you
No, I
like.
don't have a farm. It's a house in the countryside.
Okay,
I mean,
yeah,
this is upstairs, which is mostly where I play music here. But
okay,
acoustic music is downstairs with the piano, and
okay.
upstairs is a bit electric, and the rooms. But I, I do like cooking. Yes, it's a fact. Yes,
Yeah,
it's.
yeah. And growing your own
Uh,
your own food, growing some little things, some vegetables.
some of it, I mean, I have a lot of fruit. This has not been a good year, though. I mean,
Yeah.
I think you'll find people who grow anything anywhere on the planet will tell you. I mean, this is the first year I've had to spray grapes from mildew,
Oh,
uh, and I'm going to have to change some angles. My figs are 3 months late. I mean, it's very strange weather.
nothing is normal
The-
these times.
it's not really a question of growing your food and cooking it. It's more, I live in the countryside, so I try to live somewhat in harmony with the nature I live in. And that's all. But it's amazing how you notice there is real changement in weather
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's alarming.
when you live in when you live in the countryside. And I'm not so close to the sea as I used to be. Uh, I'm about 160 kilometers, so it's fairly continental climate. And in that continental climate, yeah, you see how everything is weird. The seasons seem to be out of sync by about 2.5 months,
Yeah.
and you don't. I've just been buying wood for the winter. What's this? Normally we should be outside.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Reclining.
sunbathing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Mm.
reclining. Yeah, yes, I enjoy reclining. Yeah.
Yeah. And gliding, they say. Yeah. Yeah. Well, Tim, let's go back to our, my conversation. I would like to suggest some topics like, uh, might be obvious to you, but when, why, and how did you begin your relationship with France? I think Dave Allen had something to do with that when you decided to move to France.
Yeah, 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 yes, clear. It was 1971,
Yeah.
and I was called to the Manor Studios to help someone I didn't know, but I knew a lot of people around him. That is to say, David Allen finished mixing of a record called Banana Moon,
That's it. Yeah, yeah.
which David at the time told me was his second solo album. They've kind of changed the cover of Magic Brother to make it a Gong record now, but originally that was David Judy Smith's solo album, as was Banana Moon, the record we were making in London. But at the end of that, I was asked if I would come back and look after the sound for the group David was forming called Gong. Now, they hadn't recorded yet, but by the time
Yep.
I'd been there a couple of months, we'd already made Continental Circus, for instance. It was the beginning of Gong, yeah, or, as they called it then, David Allen and Gong. Yes. You know. So yeah, coming to France was very much an invitation from David. Staying here has not been; it's been my choice. You know.
Okay. And but you don't regret, having making the. I mean, you didn't make the decision, but you stayed there, and I think there are good things that you did in France.
Yeah, it's Gong. When we teamed up with the guys at Virgin,
Yeah.
it made us go to England a lot and finally be managed from England. So in the end, we actually went and stayed for a year in England in a house, not a well-chosen house, not in a well-chosen area, but convenient for our work with Virgin because it was close to the manor. And, well, at the end of this year, I was fed up with the whole thing. Yes. Yeah, it wasn't working the way it should. We had some very strange problems in Gong that it's taken most of 50 years to work out what they were, you know?
And they still
But,
seem to
but
not, yeah, they still haven't been solved, as I can perceive.
not solved, but
Yeah, I understand.
they will never even be properly identified because David and Judy had a strange hold on people they work with, which allowed them to be very dishonest without having any feedback. So they got away with it. They're both dead now, but I reckon I know what it was, and it's not nice, but you know.
Okay. Now, Tim, what influenced Tim Blake to get into music and not, for example, into sound engineering? I think I understand that you were involved in some way at the beginning. You were studying something like related to recording, or you were your own sound engineer in the shows?
Now, I did learn to do two things.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I learned to be a post-production engineer,
Okay.
okay, for cinema. But that was opportunism because it was possible for me to do that, so I did it, you know? But after that, I became interested in live sound,
Okay.
which I still think is a very fragile subject. Not many groups have a good live sound. It's
Yeah.
a shame.
Yeah.
And next to that, I learnt multi-track recording because it's an essential part of music making. You
It
know?
is. It is.
But I mean, as I was going to be on the electronic side of music, finally, and then I was interested in acoustic music too, But as I was going to be in the electronic side of music, it seemed to me the thing I could learn first was engineering.
Okay. And did you were you ever asked to make some music for film, maybe recently or in back in those days?
Film.
Hmm. You laugh.
Um, there's a film by Jerome Laperousaz with
Ah,
music from me on it called Human, which is a feature film. And
from when, Tim? Remember that? 1970
yes, well,
something?
this would have been made in 74,
Okay.
so it would have been released in 75.
It
With
wasn't.
Jean Marot
Yeah.
and Terence Stamp.
Wow.
It's not a very good film and it's not very good music. And, you know, uh, but it didn't cost a lot of money to Jerome and it's probably helped make him some, which is something he likes to do.
But do you have those tapes
Uh,
somewhere in your,
huh?
do you have the tapes somewhere?
Not even, no, no.
Oh,
It was on YouTube a
uh,
couple of years ago, and Jerome had it taken off.
oh, well,
You know, so it's perhaps he's, I don't know, but the film is called Human,
Hima, I'm going to search.
and
Uh-huh.
and I did some I did some
Mm-hmm.
advertising film music in the very early 70s, about 72, 72-ish, beginning of 72. But I don't have any trace of that either.
You mean for trailers?
And
For trailers?
no, music for TV adverts.
Okay. Okay. Interesting.
Okay, but it was, doing bzzz, boom,
More sound effects. Mhm.
first synthesizer work. And uh, there's a DVD
Okay.
David put out
Oh, look at that.
called Gong Live in Montserrat, which David has used as a platform for a number of solo video sketches, most of which are quite boring. But I noticed that they used the Octave Doctors and the Crystal Machine as the index music, which works quite well, actually.
Okay.
So that every time you come out of one video, you go to the index with the index music, which is kind of going on forever, and choose your next video delight. But I thought that was a bit cheeky. There's a short film called The Black Balloon, which is by some American filmmakers. And that again has got the Octave Doctors and the Crystal Machine on it. And it's got the Tick Tock Gliss, which is attributed to David Allen, which comes from Flying Teapot, the angel, Zero the hero with the witch's spell.
Okay.
I mean, David changed the titles of tracks after they were recorded to suit him. I don't even know the names he gave to some of them.
Tim, tell,
But,
yeah. Do you consider your voice and singing one more instrument in the music you've made so far, or did you ever really meant to be a singer? To the presence of your voice, for example, on Blake's New Jerusalem, gives it a very, in my own opinion, a very melancholic feel to the whole piece. it would have been different, very different with only keyboards. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, but well, I've written a lot of songs too. You know, I mean, I like singing.
mhm. Yeah,
You know,
generator, laser
you
beam.
you you
Yeah,
you always put things like Blake's New Jerusalem in premiere.
and waiting for Natty. I must add, that was a huge
Well,
success. Yeah,
it's a very nice song too.
it
There's
is.
several versions of
Absolutely
that.
is. Yeah.
Um, how can I say this? One always brings Blake's New Jerusalem to the front when we had this kind of discussion, but I would go as far as to say I think my singing is a lot better on the Tide of a Century
Yeah.
probably than Blake's New Jerusalem. I mean, I spent a lot more time working on
Hmm. Tide.
the singing of Tide of a Century because I the one time
Hmm.
in making a recording like one of my records, right? The one time you really want to rely on somebody else to do the recording is when you're singing.
Okay.
And recording yourself singing is pretty bloody hard, right? And I tried several friends to get them to record me singing. And recording on a computer is, well, it's like a production, it's an extraordinary production tool if I was recording you singing,
Hmm.
right? Because I would take the complete control of what's going on out of your hands and I'd have you singing away and I'm dropping in and out on the computer as chooses me till I get a really good performance of you onto the disc, right?
Hmm.
But you have to be quite good to do that. And not everyone can pick up on that, you know, on what a good tool the computer is. So I wasn't able to train anybody to record my voice. And I ended up setting up my windmill in a particular fashion where all the hardware was in my kitchen, 2 floors downstairs, and screen and microphone and keyboard were 2 floors up, you know, because Macs were very noisy in those days. So, having a way that I could actually have the screen, the keyboard, and the mic, and a phonic
Hmm.
comfort.
Hmm.
And but it was awfully hard to do. But I think the result, I find the result as far as singing is concerned, is probably better than Blake's New Jerusalem.
Well,
But I may not be the best judge, you know, and perhaps I like my mature voice better than
uh-huh.
my young voice, you know.
Uh-huh. Now, Tim, two questions that are related to what we just been talking about. One of them is who is Natty and what was it like living in a windmill? It's a very particular place to live. Well, I haven't been in a windmill living, so I don't know. But I was going to ask you about Natty and this windmill in your story.
Uh, when I was working with Hawkwind
Hmm.
from 1979 to the end of 1980 or 81, the beginning, I can't remember exactly.
Mhm.
There was a tour after Levitation that I didn't want to go on because my girlfriend at the time was pregnant.
Mhm.
And I had my arms twisted a bit to go on tour. And the very worst thing happened, and she miscarried our baby, which
Oh,
is what I was trying to avoid.
okay.
And the lady's name was Nadej, and my name is Timothy. And so Natty was, in fact, the name of our daughter, who was born dead, unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm very lucky. I have another daughter since then. I mean, this is what, 40, almost 50 years ago, But I have a daughter who's 20 next week, so.
Does she play music? Does she play any instruments, or what does she like?
Yeah, well, I have a lot of guitars in this house, and they belong to her.
Good.
And I've got dozens in her bedroom next door. And when I'm out of the house, she plays the piano a bit, but shuts up when I rock up. But
Well, maybe you will
yes,
perform with her someday. Who knows?
I have some doubt about that. But I'm open-minded to it. I've noticed how many of my
Fans?
many of my colleagues,
Okay. Yeah, they take their sons and daughters on stage.
play music
Yeah.
with their children.
Yes.
Edgar Furrows ended up playing with his son.
Yes.
Phil Campbell from Motorhead has a group called Phil Campbell and the Bastard Sons, and they're all there playing with him.
That's nice.
There is some of this.
Yeah.
I don't think I don't think
You might want to do it.
music should really make dynasties.
Mhm.
I don't think it should make dynasties, but I mean, it must be. I saw Terry Riley playing with his son
Okay.
a couple of years ago. Amazing concert,
And and
playing acoustic music.
think of what's going on with Genesis these days, Tim. They are going to go on tour only because Phil's son is playing Nick on drums. Otherwise, they
Oh,
wouldn't.
really? Ah, well, there you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah. I mean
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah. It's that the same went with Led Zeppelin. You know, Gonzo's son. He's been on bands playing the music of Led Zeppelin. So might be a nice feeling to parents to have their sons, their children on stage. Maybe not. Each one is different. Now, what about the windmill, Tim? How did this came to mind? How did this come to mind? Living in a windmill, uh, the space. I can't imagine the space you have there.
Well, after this time with Hawkwind and this natty business, unfortunately,
Hmm.
how can I say this? I put some space between touring music and me, and so as I was not living alone at that time, I was looking to for a place just to put my music studio in originally. And I found this amazing windmill, a very cheap rental, in the middle of nowhere, not far from where I lived. And it was perfect. And the music from Magic and the Tide of the Century was all written in that windmill, although there is a thing in the Tide of the Century that went right back to Waterfalls in Space epoch. But I mean, basically, it's all written there and conceived there. And I was teaching people computer music and other niceties like this, because it was all kind of new. And was testing out high-tech devices for music salesmen. And so I moved all this into the windmill. And when I had a change in my private life, I started living in the windmill. And I find it fine, you know. I mean, people think I'm very, very surrounded now because I live in a village with 11 people who live in it, you know. And people say, oh, well, you're a lot of people around you now, you know, effectively because the windmill was very much on its own, you know. But
Now, what about you know, the story goes along with Steve Hillich, Hawkwind, Gong, Clear Lights that I love so much, and even Nick Turner's Sphinx album. Which one of those rides do you appreciate the most? I think it's, well, every chapter is different, I know, but what are the main memories that you have? You know, where did you feel more comfortable? If there's something like it. I'm not a musician, so it's my question that comes from a, you know, a fan, really.
well, where did I feel more comfortable?
Clear Light was amazing. I wish it could have gone on. Did you live there?
It could have. We had a lot of problems with Clear Light, and basically it's all fucked up on one very technical question, is that we didn't have a way to get him to play the metronome. And to do what we were doing, which was overdubbing from piano tracks, we needed him to play in time. So he redid what was written as the first part of the symphony, which he basically written with a rock band in mind, you know. And I couldn't say if it was better. I mean, I would have liked to have been able to record that part the way he did later, but that wasn't the opportunity I had. Obviously, the Fish Rising is very comfortable because it's music I've been playing for a long time. And the actual recording of my tracks in Fish Rising was done in my bedroom. So it was particularly comfortable. We had the recording truck parked down the bottom, you know. When we made Nick Turner's record,
Play one.
Gail Coulson did her best to make us all very comfortable, you know. And all the multiple producers who are always pestering me to make more records with Nick. If they put me in the same situation as I was then, I would, you know, completely, you know.
Being on
What
Charisma,
else?
being on Charisma, I don't think that label had much exposure or a lot of promotion. Am I wrong? You know, living in Chile is different from what you can perceive. Charisma was fun.
What I remarked, I was in France, right? And I was contacted directly. I mean, but Nick and I had already agreed to do something. In fact, we didn't do what we had agreed because I wasn't sure about sampling the pyramid tracks
Mhm.
into the album because with the Cyril experience, I knew it would not be possible to make rhythmic music to Nick lying in a bloody pyramid playing his flute, you know?
Uh-huh.
And I suggested that we choose themes from his pyramid recordings and then re-record them in a rock and roll setup.
Mhm.
Now, Nick didn't agree with me on this, so I didn't produce the record. It's Steve Village who produced the record. But from once we had agreed that we would make this record together, it was the president of Charisma Records who took over. And that is an amazing woman called Gail Colson. Now, this woman was a cadeau, a present to rock and roll, you know? I mean, she's one of the most serious business people I've worked with and with whom it was a pleasure to work with, you know? Every trip of the way. She's just so correct, you know? And it's a horrible industry. It's full of thieves and whatnot. And
Informal people.
there's a serious, honest person doing a good job for everybody concerned. You know, it's wow, you don't see this a lot. And of course, Gail left Charisma, and the last time I saw Gail was very funny. It was in 1979.
Okay.
I was in Glastonbury. And I'm at Glastonbury with Patrice Varna and my lasers and Jean-Philippe Riquiel. And I am booked to close the Glastonbury Festival with playing New Jerusalem, patati patata. I'm very proud of this fact. And at a certain moment, Michael Eavis comes up and I'm talking to Gail, who's there. You know, how are you, Dad? Oh, I haven't seen you for a long time. Oh, it's so good. Oh, it's so good to see you here, Tim. You know, very welcoming. I thought, wow, is she perhaps she's got something to do with the festival? I don't know. And Michael calls us in for production meeting. And the production meeting is, look, Gail, we brought Tim over to close the festival with his laser show. And she's saying, yes, I know, isn't that good? You know, and so you'll get Peter on before Tim. And she says, yes, no problem. Oh, I'm looking forward to this. And that was the production meeting. So I still don't know what's going on. So as we leave, I say to Gail, what are you doing here? And she said, well, I don't work for Charisma anymore, Tim. I'm looking after Peter. And I said, but Peter who, Gail? She said, but Peter Gabriel, Tim, he's just left Genesis.
Yeah.
You know. And I said, what? Have I just agreed to go on after Peter Gabriel? And said, yes, 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 yes. I mean, this woman was so enthusiastic, you know. And perhaps if Nick's record dipped from view, it's because Charisma dipped from view, because this incredibly hard-working person was no longer running that record company. And I think the catalogue got sold on as a label, probably to Virgin, didn't it, or something, you know, and got lost in this whole micmac
Hmm.
of this thing as it expanded incessantly.
Hmm. Now, what about Tim? Can you still hear me? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yes, yes, yes,
Okay.
yes, yes.
Now, what about this? Well, I don't know if you know, but I've been a big fan of Jean-Philippe Riquel since I first heard his wonderful debut album that I've been playing as every time that I can on radio. And I have him on Facebook too. He's such a wonderful person. And how did you meet Jean-Philippe Riquel? And a friend of mine introduced me to the Waterfalls in Space legend in those days because it wasn't available anymore. It was a lost tape for years. So could you tell me a little bit about those days? And of course, Jean-Philippe participating on your record.
Well, for Waterfalls in Space 1, right? The part of Waterfalls in Space which we were we weren't improvising on other people's songs, because there is some of that. I put in the Cherry Red deal, and I know already there's some of it is on the Lighthouse anthology box,
Yeah.
and some of it is on a special CD release they did of New Jerusalem as well. I would have given it its own album myself, but
Yeah.
this is not me, it's Cherry Red's business, you
Okay.
know. Right, how did I meet John Philip? This is magic. I was playing in Gong at Tabaka, and we were to stay there for a week. It was like Club Mediterranean rock and roll in Tunisia, 1973, and the summer. And it was a festival, and we were there, and we were there all week because we were doing the sound as well. And it was Gong, Miles Davis, Manitas de Platas, Creme Delirium, and Creme Delirium because they got us the gig, I think, Ravi Shankar,
Mhm.
in a completely undersold festival in a festival village on the beach in Tunisia. And we were there for a week, wow. And I think we were doing a sound check in the afternoon. And there was this guy with a very excited little boy
Mhm.
looking on. Wow, it's a synthesizer, Dad, it's a synthesizer.
Mhm.
You know, I want to have a look, and so I say to him, well, come and have a look. And this guy is touching my synthesizer and playing it a bit while the band's jamming. And, who is this, for fuck's sake, And I didn't even notice that he was blind.
Mhm.
Only his whole approach to the machine was tactile, you know. But, it hadn't occurred to me why. And his father said, can I buy you lunch tomorrow? And I said, yes. So I went to lunch with them, and this was Sam Riccio,
Yeah.
who had started up his ex-wife's fashion company, divorced, and had left the company and was now kind of interested in starting up his son as a musician. Now there's a particularity, is this son was blind. But he was taking him around the world meeting musicians.
Like your boy. Like your boy.
Yes, completely, yes. He'd already met, by this time, Stevie Wonder and Frank Zappa, and later on I introduced him to Todd Rundgren, and, you know, these are all musicians he was, although in the end it's going to Africa that pooped his mind, but these were the musicians that interested him at this time. And his father said, "Look, Mr. Blake, I need you to explain to my son that it's not going to be possible to play the synthesizer when you can't see what you're doing." And I said, "I don't see why." And John Philippe started to smile very heavily, and he said, "Why? Well, what do you mean?" I said, "Well, if you had a mini Moog, for example, I'm sure he could play it very well without having to see what was written on the buttons." And at which point John Philippe was over the moon, and at the end of the lunch, Sam Ricciello had agreed to buy his son a mini Moog. And I lost view of John Philippe after this. I didn't catch up with him in Paris. I was involved in Gong. We were involved in finally going to England, doing the Virgin business, you know, recording you. And I wasn't out of there till, 1975. The summer. And I didn't go to Paris straight away, but when I did, and I'd already made the Crystal Machine album, I was living in a particularly nice place in Paris, which someone had lent to me. And a friend of mine called Gilbert Sabuna, who is also blind, he contacted me saying, "You've got to meet a friend of mine." And I say, "Okay, fine." And that evening I have Gilbert Sabuna, a taxi driver with Gilbert Sabuna on one arm and Jean-Philippe Ricciel on the other, bringing me down the corridor to where this house was, because it was off the beaten track in Paris and hard to find. And I suddenly realised that here was John Philippe at 16, and or 15 even, and yes, 15, and what a great Moog player he had become. And right, his father died in between, and I get the feeling that when his father was taking his son round the world, he was looking for someone who would kind of put down some tracks for Jean-Philippe to ride up off, like a takeoff. And it seems it was me, get the guy mini Moog, because, we certainly got it back in mini Moogers. And when I was recording New Jerusalem, I'd started the recording of New Jerusalem in England. And I finished it in Paris because it was the actual song New Jerusalem which came right at the end of the project to me. And so I was able to use the Barclay studio in Paris, and so instead of mixing, I recorded New Jerusalem in there, you know. Then I mixed the album, you know. And John Philippe was coming out every night, you know, and was just sitting in the back of the studio catching the vibe of what was going on. So at a certain moment we said come on, you've got to play now. Oh, really? Oh, okay. And John Philippe's participation in New Jerusalem, he was there all the time, but in one night he marked that record with his magic touch, which was great. And then we went to Japan together.
Do you mean he
That we
wasn't?
did.
Yeah, sorry, Tim. Do you mean he wasn't meant to be on the record originally when he visited? He was just, you know, feeling the vibrations around him. But
Well, you know, he walked in on my record, you know, you know, and it was a fact.
mhm.
At that time, John Philip spent a lot of time at my house in Vincennes with Bridget and me, and later with Didier, you know.
Mhm.
And he spent a lot of time, and Bridget was kind of one of his first assistants when we split up. You know,
You mean Didier
so,
Malher,
I mean,
correct? Didier Malher?
yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mhm. And what about Tim? I don't know if you want to add something to that. I was going to ask you, you said you use the Barclay Studios for the New Jerusalem. And I was going to ask you about this because I don't know. I sometimes thought maybe if Tim had been on Virgin or had the chance to be on Virgin, maybe you would have had more support from the label. What about Egg? How did you make contact with Egg, or how did they ask you to? Because Crystal Machine came out on Egg originally. Did you ever had any chances to put it
As
out?
in
Yeah,
as in New Jerusalem.
yeah.
Um, I made Crystal Machine, right?
Yeah.
And I can't say there was a particular desire to make a record with Crystal Machine
Okay.
because I was having a lot of problems from the record business because of my implication as a member of Gong with Virgin. And to make matters worse, during my time with Virgin, I had encouraged them to get interested in German electronic music.
Mhm.
And as a result, they'd had Klaus Schulze, and then Tangerine Dream and Tangerine Phaedra went big. Ooh,
Mhm.
right? So by the time I was out of Gong, I was the enemy to Virgin.
Mhm.
No, I was the man to shoot down. Richard did come to my first Crystal Machine concert.
Richard Branson.
Yes, yes. But that was it. Only Virgin made a claim on all my publishing money,
Mhm.
and so I was unable to earn money from my music after the Gong period because it would all go to pay off Gong debts, of which there were many. And as a result, I wasn't really keen on record companies, you know.
Mhm.
But I was doing something else for money in 1976, Patrice and I were working in the team of a friend of ours who died last year, unfortunately, who we call Max Holdup. And Max had this company called Holdup, which was using basically many of Patrice's lighting techniques for the service of advertising, i.e. earning money.
Okay.
And we had built at Le Mans a 1,000 square meter screen, which we projected on with giant projectors which Patrice had modified to make them to kind of show things, and a laser. And we were at this that day, and while we were setting up in the afternoon, I put my crystal machine tape on the sound system. And one of Max's guests came up to me and said, "Hey, Tim, is this your music?"
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Why don't you come and see me next week?" And he gives me his business card. And this is a guy called Fabrice. And he was an executive producer with Barclay.
Okay.
And they had decided to launch an international label called Egg.
Yeah.
And it was because of Barclay's desire that this be an export label, which is why you got a lot of it in Brazil and in Chile and in places which I normally don't sail in. But it seemed that Chile, for instance, were buying because they used to buy a lot of Barclay's French production.
Yeah, there were some import record stores, a couple really here. So that's where the records came from first, and then
Yeah.
shopping among collectors, I guess.
I mean, Barclay didn't have a rock market or a marginal market. That's what they were going for with Egg, right? But what is strange is that they were succeeding in selling me where they were selling Johnny Halliday and, Jack Brel.
Yeah.
And this is what got me into Barclay,
Right.
And so when I was finishing New Jerusalem, I'm using the studio which was basically built for Jack Brel music,
Mm-hmm.
with an orchestral-sized room and a big vocal cabin in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And I have never seen Brel in there. I could have, because in my period he recorded his last record there. But if you can imagine the vibe in that room,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
this coming from oh, bugger this.
Yeah.
I've got
The light went out.
something. I've got something pissing me off.
Oh,
Right, okay, it's gone. A huge window coming up.
mhm.
And it's quite amazing working in that room, actually. And although I was my own engineer, I was assisted by the director of the studio, because the studio was closed for August. That's why I had it. And but the director, he lived round the corner, and he wasn't going on holiday during August. when a mad Englishman was using his studio. So he was keeping his eye on me, and actually the vocals of New Jerusalem were recorded by the sound engineer of Jacques Brel. Think about it. Yeah, it's an honor.
It is. It is. Really. What a lucky chance. So Crystal Machine team was in the end like a multimedia adventure where you never really originally planned to make a record. It's the other way around. It came out of people observing the show, attending the show with the lasers and all that.
Well, I suppose so, yes.
Mhm.
Uh,
And is Patrice Warrener?
I wish we had video
Yes.
technology in those days,
Mhm.
but it wasn't till about 78 that we started to see the first video cameras, and by 79 it was gone, that thing. But yes, it would have been quite good if the 77 Palace show had been filmed. That would have replaced the need for but we weren't singing New Jerusalem then either. So it would have had, I mean, there is still a space and time
Mhm.
to make a Crystal Machine DVD
Good.
with John Philippe, with Patrice, but I thought I had the gig. It was perfect. But I've been cancelled 3 times because of the lockdown, and I think the opportunity is gone. But the opportunity was in March 2020 when we had the 60th year of the very first laser beam being lit in Hughes Aircraft Laboratory. It was a maser, in fact. It was microwave rather than light. But it was the first laser lit. And this was called the International Day of Light. And I was asked by my friends at the Conseil Européen de Recherche Nucléaire, CERN, to do a performance to celebrate the International Day of Light in front of an invited audience in their round theatre they have at Mérine. And of course we got cancelled by COVID.
Mhm.
And we got re-cancelled for the 61st anniversary. So I think it's been and gone, but we had it there, and of course this would have been videoed.
Mhm.
In fact, I probably would have done a podcast, because when you're at CERN, you're actually at the top of the World Wide Web, so there wouldn't be a problem with transmission.
Mhm.
No. I'm quite surprised our conversation is as good as it is, because it's very rural, the internet here. But at CERN, you're actually on ground zero as far as the internet is concerned. It was actually invented there. Yeah. So, yeah. And, we had a whole plan to cable in Lighthouse with firing up the collider and using the readout screens you get when the LHC is running, and apparently for some reason or other in their build-up they install what they call a crystal machine. So I have screens saying, crystal machine installing, and numbers going up and down. I mean, it's great fun. fundamental
Hope you
physics.
can still do it one of these days either.
Well, you know, I mean, they were very generous, but we haven't been able to say yes. You know.
Okay.
But it's um, it's uh, it's great to have friends like that in the business, you know. But you know, I would have, you know, had Crystal Machine the record been a DVD, I would have been very happy with that. Yes.
Yeah, and all of us too, believe me, because there are some short, you know, I don't know, those were taken from TV, filming by TV channels. There are very few things that are available.
Oh
And,
yeah, I
mhm,
read it. I mean, I've got. There's a Swiss TV bit,
mhm.
and there's a bit that someone made,
Yep.
quite possibly at the first concert I sang New Jerusalem at.
Mhm.
Actually, because I'd just come out of the studio in Ivry Vitry, and one of Patrice's laser team had a video camera. And for some reason, about 20 years later, a little clip of this came back to me from someone in Israel. Would you believe it?
Look at that.
You know,
Mhm.
and but I know who it is who took it, and it would have been good if he had more. But
Yeah, sure. Now, I wrote something that goes like taming the theremin, which is an instrument I love, the theremin. And what makes it so fascinating for every generation, when including yourself? Uh, you know, Jimmy Page and everyone. Yeah, Majesty. So it's really a crazy invention, amazing sound. I don't know what to say.
I came to the theremin very late in life.
Okay.
Okay, I was 54 when I first had a theremin in between my hands, which was this one, which was given to me by the French musician called Romain Terzi.
Okay.
But the more I think about it, the thing that mystifies me more than anything else is why we didn't have theremins in 1968.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
because Bob wasn't making them because he'd started making synthesizers. Probably that's the only reason. I mean, it's very present in 1950s cinema. You know, there's a Bernard Herrmann score for Hitchcock, Spellbound. What year is
Yeah,
that?
yeah, Spellbound,
You know,
50 something, 40 something, I guess.
60?
No,
Yeah,
yeah,
well, okay, okay. But, you know, there's 50s black and white films, Planet X and all of this. And
45.
Bob Moog, Bob Moog was building theremins.
Uh-huh.
But, I mean, there is, of course, the Beach Boys, but it's not a theremin.
No? Oh,
No.
good vibrations.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, there you go.
It's what they called a tannerin, but
Oh,
but you can buy it now. It's called a warble tone,
okay.
but in fact, it's the ribbon controller from a Moog, from a Onde Martineau, a ring with a wire on it, on a wire, zzz, and of course it's much easier to play in tune, which is why it had such success on Good Vibrations.
Yeah. So we both know
Uh,
Oliver Messiaen, don't we? We both like, you like his concept for Ondes Martenot, Oliver Messiaen?
I don't have Olivier Messiaen on my record player 24 hours a day
Okay.
because actually, I'll tell you a secret. One is I don't have a record player, and two is that there's one thing I have in common with Olivier Messiaen, is that I like birdsong. And, I'm more often with the window open
Yeah.
listening to birdsong than listening to Saint Francois and les Oiseaux, for instance, by Messiaen, which is where he's tried to transcribe birdsong into written music. I mean, it's fantastic work, but you know, there is works for theremin and for onde martineau in Messiaen. Yeah, the onde martineau is a great instrument. I would love one.
Strange one. I mean, to me, it's no keys, special one.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yes. I would love a valve theremin, but the ones that work are very.
Hmm.
Doric Chrysler was in St. Petersburg
Right.
with the Terman family, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
Now, they are very proud of Léon, and there's a museum and everything. And Doric sees these original theremins, and she knows people who can repair them. But the family don't want this because they don't want non-original parts,
Okay.
you know. And it's a shame, really, because, if you look at some of the clips of Leon playing, he's got some quite interesting switches and buttons. I would like to know what they do.
Okay.
But, yeah, I'm a great fan of the theremin, I will admit.
Yeah. Now, Tim, sorry to ask. I'm not sure about your time, but I have a few more questions. Would you like to continue now, or would you like to
Yeah,
continue?
yeah. You continue.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm free.
All right. Now, what's your best pick for playing? The recording studio or the stage? Uh, how well do you feel in each setting? Well, totally different, I know, but the energy you get, on stage.
Well, you know, I I started this whole thing 1968. Let's say 1969, right?
Okay.
Because I was still a student. 68 to 69, I was a student, and by the end of the year, the school year, I was out on my ear doing sound for groups and carrying equipment about. And from there, it's been more and more music making. There's been moments where it's been very technical, and the studio has been very important. But when it comes down to it, in 1969, I was doing this concert for High Tide, and I was setting up my sound.
Mm-hmm.
And some guys came in and said, "Look, man, we know you're doing a gig this evening. Any chance that we can play a slot?" And my job would have been to say, "Fuck off, go away." Yeah, we don't need you here. And my reaction was the opposite. I said, "Well, let me see what I can do."
Mm-hmm.
And these people came back in the evening and they jammed a set. And 50 years later, I was playing with Dave in the Albert Hall in London, celebrating 50 years from that day, you know, when I opened the door on Hawkwind. And I will say without the hesitation of a doubt, especially in the rock situation, it's got to be on stage. You know, and finally, the heritage of Gong is much more than the 3 albums we made. It's all the gig tapes around it, you know. That's, you know, so the stage will win it overall, you know. I mean, I wouldn't do it anymore. I only do it to go on stage, you know.
Mhm.
It's irresistible.
Do you see any bands today with the inheritance of the space rock sound of those days? Like, people like the Ostrich Tentacles that I also played a lot on Futuro FM. And there are some people that are, exploring and getting to know about those days and giving new values to this sound. I don't think you listen to any of these bands or music, I mean, at home?
No, I don't.
No.
I listen to Eric Satie,
Okay. Mhm.
some classical music. Um, if I listen to some of the old records, I'm always surprised. That's good. You
Yeah.
know, that's good being surprised. Um, we've released all this Gong music, and there's more to come. I don't know if it's good to release that or not. I can't say. Um,
There was a time when you withdrawn your albums. There were some problems, and now there's been like a rediscovering Tim Blake in a way, and new generations getting close to your music. Uh, I was going to ask you, Tim, how
no,
much more can you
no,
get of the old master
no.
tapes, the remastering and
Well,
all that?
well, I'll explain it very simply.
Yeah.
Um, I hate record companies.
Hmm.
All my life, it's been chasing after record companies for royalty statements, which aren't always accurate, have always been pirated by someone, you know.
Hmm.
Musicians aren't honest people either, but the music business, I hate it. And what I got together at one point was my own download site.
Hmm.
And I withdrew as much of my music as I could from third parties, and I made it available myself via download sites. Now, little by little, iTunes started to grow, and Amazon, and the people who sell music by download, you know, and this now represents 80% of music usage. I was going to speak French now, 80%, 80%, you know. And what everyone complains about is when you earn 0.0001 of a dollar by your song getting played on Spotify,
Hmm.
your record company then takes 84% of that. Okay? So you're getting nothing. But if you're getting that 0.001 of a dollar, 100% yourself, you're making what you're worth, which isn't a lot. But you're making it. You are. Not someone who's trying to send himself into space.
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay?
Yeah, yeah.
And that is far better way forward. And what happened to me was that when I started doing this, after about a year, a media company offered to buy some of my recordings.
Okay.
And I very famously called them thieves at a very splendid dinner they had set out for me, and left for dinner saying, fuck this, you know. You're telling me what you are going to do with my music, you know. And a year later, they recontacted me via someone else, and their offer had got somewhat bigger.
Hmm.
And I said, no, 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 you know, I'm just beginning to make a minimum wage out of my music by selling it on the internet. You know, this is not enough. And a year later they came back and they had tripled their offer, and I bought this house I'm sitting in. There you go. So my music is now back in the industry, actually belongs to the industry, and I have this lovely place to retire. There you
Great,
go.
great, great. Yeah. Now, Tim, what are some of the best memories? I really admire him a lot. He made amazing solo albums as well as with Gong. Pierre Morlaine, I know you possibly have some nice memories about him.
Who?
Pierre Morlaine,
Oh, yes.
mhm, great musician, composer, and
Well,
performer.
what it seems is most of the recordings that exist of myself and Gong have got Pierre on them, and that's a bloody good thing.
Mhm.
Pierre Merlin was definitely the best drummer I have ever played with.
Mhm.
Remarkable. It's technically speaking, he's got this triplet control on the snare drum
Mhm.
that most other drummers don't have. Now, if you listen to something very simple, like the beginning of Steve's song, I Never Glib Before,
Mhm.
where Steve is ba da 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 da. If you listen, Pierre plays a fill on the snare drum to come in. And if you listen carefully, he's playing. He actually plays music on the drums. It's, you know, it's completely different for any other drummer. And I've played with some good ones, you know. I played with Ginger Baker,
No.
you know. Uh, 2 years ago on the Hawkwind tour, I was having a cuddle with Eric Clapton as we had a cry because Ginger had died the month before, you know.
Yes.
And Eric had gone to see him, and you know, I played with Bill Bruford. I played with Pip Pyle. It's probably the drummer I least liked. We've had Laurie, we've had Rob Tate, we've had Rashid Ali, who was a very good drummer, but too spaced out.
Mhm.
Someone that would have been worth playing more with is that young man who stood in on the drums in the 2006 concerts, Chris Tyler, because you know he's a very good drummer. I'm surprised that they didn't keep him. but there you go.
Hmm.
And I was very close to Pierre, you know.
Okay.
I mean, it's very strange. For instance, it seemed to have been a shock to David that Gong had found Pierre when he wasn't around. And he was always trying to make up stories to cover this fact, you know. David didn't like not being the boss. And, but Pierre rocked up, he'd just come out of school, you know, and he was looking for a band. And all of a sudden, David's group had fallen to pieces when we were recording Flying Teapot. And the moment was ripe to get in with Pierre. And every time we made a record with Pierre, he would translate the words into French and say, "Oh, fuck this, David," you know, and leave the group and go and play classical music for 6 months, you know, which was very hard to get on with. But that was Pierre, you know. He didn't really like the finished products of what we were doing, but he liked what we were doing to get them done.
Hmm.
And all I can really say about Pierre is that one night, and this would have been after my accident, if I'm remembering correctly, and I just got back to my windmill home.
2005, that was
Huh?
20 or something. 20. When was the accident?
2005,
Five.
the
Yes,
accident was
five.
2004, yeah. But I was hospitalised for about a year.
Oh,
But by 2005, I was back in the windmill, which I left in 2006. And after 21 years, you know, it's the place I've lived longest in my life, actually. And Pierre phones me in the middle of the night, you know. And we have a long conversation. And, well, we visit a lot of places, past, present, and future. And Pierre was saying, "Tim, you've been right all along. We should get back to play music together." And that was the last thing he said. And we put the phone down, and I said to myself, I don't think Pierre's in a very good condition if he's phoning me up to ask to play music again. He who has so many opportunities, this doesn't sound good. And the next morning, the telephone rang, and someone was saying, "Hello, who is this, please?" And I said, "Well, this is a bit strange.
yeah.
You're phoning me and you're asking who it is."
Mhm.
And the person on the other end said, "Oh, is that Tim Blake?" Because I speak French, I must have a very strong English accent, you know, when I speak French. People know it's me when I'm phoning you, you know.
Mhm.
And I said, "Yes, who's this?" And they said, "Look, this is Benoit Merlin.
Sorry, that you
I'm at my
froze.
brother."
Sorry, Tim, that froze a little bit. Who
Huh?
was your voice froze a few seconds ago? Who was calling?
Oh,
Could you?
right. I mean, people know it's me that's phoning
Yeah,
because
yeah,
I have an accent when I speak
yeah,
French.
yeah,
And the person says, "Is this Tim Blake?"
yeah.
And I say, "Yes." "Who's this speaking?" He says, "It's Benoit,
Uh,
Benoit Merlin." And he said, "I'm at my brother's flat and we've just found him dead."
so,
And my first reaction was to pick up the telephone and press R and find out who he was speaking to last. And I said, "Well, that's weird. Yes, we spent half the night
mhm.
talking to each other.
Mhm.
You know, so it's pretty, it's pretty awful to know that I was the last person to speak to Pierre live. But I'm glad I was.
Maybe, yeah, he must have felt that he might have been the last conversation you had. So sometimes people know. It happened to me too.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Friends call you because they feel that they are not going to be much longer around. Sometimes it
Well,
happens.
yeah,
Hmm.
uh, he was depressed. He was visibly taking uh,
Hmm.
a classic cocktail of antidepressant and anxiolytic medicine, which is not very good.
Hmm. Yeah. Now, well, I'm glad that you could play together and be spend some good times. Tim, now something more
But
technical.
but but,
Yeah.
but
Hmm.
I am proud to have been the last person he
Yeah.
chose to talk to, and that is the best drummer I've ever heard. Period.
Yeah. Glad about that. Now, Tim, something more technical. How did the infinite groove on Crystal Presence came to mind? Did you think of that, or was it somebody at the record company? The infinite groove on the record, on the vinyl record of
That,
Crystal
that
Machine.
what all records finish with an infinite groove.
Yeah,
The
indeed.
the question is, do you dare
Recording until the end. I mean,
modulate into the infinite groove?
uh-huh.
And I said, let's do this. We tried it on an acetate. It
Yeah,
worked, so I put it on. Now, there's been several new vinyl releases of Crystal Machine. And
yes.
what I don't know is if they've done the Infinite Groove or not, because I don't have a record player.
There's a blue one.
So,
There's a blue pressing. I saw a blue
yes,
pressing.
yes, I know I have one, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, but what I do with records, look, you can see, I put them in frames and stick them on the wall.
Yeah.
You know,
Hmm.
uh, but I will shortly have a row of coloured records.
Yeah,
I
they look
have
lovely. Yeah.
white and red and
Yeah.
blue and green.
Yeah.
You know,
Now, Tim, do you feel you've obtained enough recognition through the years? Are you content with what I mean, besides these legal matters that sometimes, spoil the fun, so to speak, uh, how do you feel today after so long when you began the journey? You still have some pending
well,
tasks, things to do, play, compose? What do
it's
you?
been. Oh, a minute. Oh, let's
Yeah,
put some light on the situation.
I can see you now.
Um, you know, it's been. It's not possible to say
Mhm.
regrets. I've
Yes.
not had any. Regrets. I've had a few, but not so
Bravo.
many to
Very, very well,
mention.
very well.
And and for the rest, I've done it my way, so I'm quite happy with things. But there are, there are some regrets. I would have quite liked to have played some more Gong music, for instance,
Mhm.
because it's very strange. Like I'm the only composer alive on those three Gong records that people call the trilogy.
Yeah.
And there's everybody and there's uncle going around calling themselves Gong. What the fuck's this? No. I would actually quite like to do some more Gong music. That would be a long term ambition. I don't think I will because I've been writing some of my memoirs. And I think I've found out why it is that people would obey David and Gilly in their dishonest schemes. Because I've always thought my colleagues were an honest bunch. I always have. And I've always treated them. But no, they're all tarred with this brush of there's something not right. Now, I think I've actually found out what it is. And but I'll be telling this in my book, not on your YouTube channel. But I've found the hold that David and Julie had on other people. And it's not very nice.
Now, what's your main gear when you play on stage, Tim? But by the way, I still regret till the day today that we couldn't have you in Chile when you came to Brazil like a few years ago, just before the pandemic happened. So I was really, really crossing my fingers, but you told me
Well,
that.
I would have, I would have enjoyed it. 2019 was a great year for me,
Yeah.
all right? Because privately, right, this year I'm celebrating 50 years of living in France. And all I've done this year is live in France. So I've been celebrating it quite well. But 2019, I went to Brazil. Finally, which was new for me. I'd never been to South America. And I came back and I went to Italy. Well, this is what a guy celebrating 50 years of music likes to do. This is what we do. We go to places, we play concerts. The first concert in Brazil, there was about 15,000 people there. I wasn't expecting that. And the second was more modest, which is a shame because it would be quite nice to play more on that stage.
But I don't.
It was very good.
Your records were not released in Brazil. I don't think they were ever released, were they? No. So it's just a radio DJ thing that happened over the years. Nobody.
I think they always were in the Barclay. I mean, Fabrice Guitard and another young man, a friend of his who played synthesizer, they even used to produce their own records inside the Barclay format. And one of theirs was a group called the Droids. With a single called Brother, Do You Have the Force, which they put out when Star Wars came out.
Okay.
And that went to #1 in Brazil, which means that Barclay was selling records in Brazil. Barclay had the thing with Brazil because they would be importing carnival music into France and exporting la chanson française into Brazil. Which liked la chanson française, I mean, the first time I went to Japan, it wasn't as Gong or Hawkwind or Crystal Machine. I went with a French singer called Sylvie Vartan, who was a variety singer. And I was kind of playing honky-tonk women on the harmonica, We had a ball. So such a lovely trip. 6 weeks in Japan. Did I enjoy myself?
The Japanese that are crazy about rock and rock records, they did have a deal with all the egg releases were available in Japan.
Yeah,
yeah.
So Brazil back in the days would have been on the list, yes, but I'd never been there. I mean, most of what Barclay proposed me was monstrously out of place. If I'd continued in the Barclay stable, they would have taken me to Brazil to play in the carnival. But, Crystal Machine is not a samba group, in case, But I performed New Jerusalem at the Festival de Saint Remo.
Oh, when was that? Late 70s.
Must have been 78.
Yeah, sure. When it came out. When it came out.
77 or so. Yeah, 77. Must have been 78.
Mhm.
You know, there was Grace Jones too.
Wow. Amazing,
Yeah.
amazing show. Yeah, by the way.
But, the idea came from the fact that Barclay had originally distributed Virgin Records.
And you know, Tim, that Barclay was here in Chile. Philips Records, Philips was the
Yeah,
company that had the license here, and they would release Charles Aznavour, Mireille Mathieu,
yeah,
and
yeah,
many,
yes,
yeah,
completely.
yeah.
Yeah,
But Tim
but
Blake, yeah,
but Philips is one of the starting bricks of Polygram,
exactly, yes.
which was the starting brick of Universal, which owns Barclay.
And Charisma back in the day, yeah, Charisma.
Well, it also owns Virgin now.
Yeah, yeah.
You
Universal owns
know,
everything. Yeah, they ate everything. They have everything in their domain now.
yes, it's a bit much,
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
but they're too big to discuss things with.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I remember once I was teaching kids in a school how to have fun with digital samplers and things like this. And, you know, and you get a girl to sing la la, la la, la la, la la, and all the kids are laughing. And a child at the back, she puts her hand up and says, "Please, sir, what's the best education plan to do your job?"
Oh, what a question.
And I thought a bit and I said, "What you want is a doctorate in copyright law."
Yeah,
No, because if you got one, you get by. If you don't, you get fucked.
yeah, yeah.
Basically, it's as simple as that. Uh,
Yeah.
and I do actually know in Paris a bass player who stopped playing bass because all the people who've played with become his clients as a lawyer, and so now he's doing music business law full time. Yeah, because there's such a need for it. Yeah, it's. I mean, with Universal in the Gong box set, we've got two records which were made before the contract with Virgin was signed. How can they say they belong to them?
Yeah.
They can't. They don't. You know. Okay, right. Well, if you make a couple of good records, that's a house each. Come on, Universal. Where's our, where's my second home?
Church. Yeah, yeah. Not Tim. I was looking. There's something beautiful behind you. Oh, that black. No, sorry, white guitar. Is what do you call that? Is that the one you use on stage? Usually, is that another one? Sorry, is that the same one you use on stage?
Yeah, that one's my favorite one. Yes.
Hmm. What do you call that?
Um, well, this is a Roland one.
Okay.
All the Roland ones have got a prefix AX.
Well, right.
This was an AX7, it says, right? And I just call them an axe.
The first time I heard that
Because
term, yeah, yeah.
Now this one is a MIDI axe,
Okay.
right? It just plays MIDI, and it runs off 6 batteries, which is a shame because that means it doesn't power the MIDI in and outs. So I've got one of his Bluetooth MIDI units from
Mhm,
Yamaha,
mhm,
which is fabulous. But this one has actually got a MIDI stream wireless transmitter on it,
mhm.
right?
Okay.
So practically, it's not the most practical because it means having this and it means having the receiver. Huh?
Mhm.
But it works very, very well, and that's my favourite, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
that's the one I always see you carrying on stage.
yeah, that's because it's my favourite. I've got another AX
Okay.
model
Okay.
here. Uh, it's more cumbersome. Uh, it it does power the yeah, because Yamaha have, is it here? No, it's downstairs. Um, but Yamaha make this perfect. It's just a MIDI in plug and a MIDI out plug
Mhm.
and a bit of wire between the two, and that's a Bluetooth connection.
Okay.
Right? And that works everywhere on stage. I mean, the MIDI stream is really good. It was what was best. But the little tiny thing is so practical. And now Roland make one,
Mhm.
uh, the Axe Edge or something they call it. And I've been trying to buy one for years. And when I have the money, they can't get it to me, and when they can get it to me, or they can't get to me, or I wanted to buy one for the Royal Albert Hall, and that's actually got Bluetooth connection on board.
Mhm.
So that's absolutely top end of the web, and that one's got sounds on it. What it needs is to have audio transmitter on board too, and it would be top edge.
Well, I hope
Because
one day. Yeah. Please go ahead.
the AX synth at one point, I had a sound connection, a sound connection too, you know, but I didn't like the sound of its synth that much, only a couple of sounds, and so it seemed a bit excessive. Because what you were asking me was what equipment I use,
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
and the secret is now I use as light as I can travel with.
You sure?
Right, I went to Brazil with
That one.
that that in a case,
Yeah.
a theremin on my shoulder in that bag,
Okay.
okay? And on the other shoulder, I have a bag like this,
Okay. Is that a backpack? No.
which, no,
Back.
this is
It's
not
a
a
bag.
backpack,
A bag. A bag.
it's
Okay.
that it carries the Mac.
Ah. There you have it.
You
Oh.
know, I have a rubbish bin fixed Mac,
Okay.
and in Brazil, they had to supply me with a keyboard,
Okay.
which yeah, a keyboard which splits, right? So I can do two MIDI channels on the keyboard. And they got me an M Audio one, which is quite good because it had a start stop button on it too,
Hmm. Hmm.
and which you can program, uh, and uh, and a screen,
Okay.
you know, and keyboard stands and mic stands, you know. I mean, you know. This, I mean, I was supposed to go and play Crystal Machine for Hawkfest. I couldn't go because I needed to have someone, a technician with me. And England, despite having the vaccination pass,
Yeah.
they they want to test every person on a private test at £200. So
Wow.
it costs basically £400 to get someone into England, you know, without thinking of travel, just on the. I mean, we all have things on our telephone, that say that we've been vaccinated.
Exactly. Yes.
That's,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
but the English have been, they're about to stop it, but up till now, so I can't travel with equipment because I need help, you know. But Brazil, I went by myself on the plane, perfect. The only thing that was wrong is that they moved my concert forward by one day, and I had asked to have the night to plug things in and get them to
Sure.
work,
I get.
you know. But I mean, if I came to Chile, it would be exactly the same thing.
Oh, well, let's wait for this pandemic to be more controlled or maybe gone. I don't think it's ever going to be gone, but I do keep my fingers crossed. Now, Tim, did anybody tape the show in Brazil, like a TV channel or anybody?
Yes, this is all mine. I have, because there's a thing with the sound.
You didn't
Uh,
like something
I,
about the sound?
well, it was very strange what they were recording. And they were recording all sorts of channels which are strange, and not the ones I asked them to record. But I worked out one track,
Oh,
which is on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, which is Southern Cross performed
yeah.
with Fabio Golfetti.
Okay.
And I suppose if I was a good boy, I would go back to work on that
Mhm.
file and perhaps do the Lighthouse because that was with Fabio because that was what was unique.
Yeah.
Otherwise, yeah.
By the way,
And
the version on the live Hawkwind album is one of the tracks that I play that you should play on radio. I really like that version you did, that the Hawkwind live, the yellow cover. Well, it's,
Live 79.
yeah, that's a great,
Yeah, well, there you go. I mean, when we were rehearsing for that, right,
hmm
I had a deal, right, on that tour. Because it was, in fact, it was Hawkwind featuring Crystal Machine, right? So we did the Hawkwind set with a support act.
hmm
And in the middle of the Hawkwind set, everyone would go away and I would perform New Jerusalem with the laser show,
hmm
which hadn't been on up until then. Huh? And uh, and that was kind of the deal, you know. And so we did this. And when we were rehearsing, and Dave says to me and says, and what we'll do is when you finish New Jerusalem, you start playing Lighthouse and we'll all come on and join you. And I thought, what? Hawkwind playing Lighthouse? No way. This is rubbish. Of course, as most of the things Dave does and says, of course, he's right. And Hawkwind can still play Lighthouse 40 years later, and it's always good. So, there's versions with me, there's versions without me.
No.
There's a fantastic version from Hawkwind's 40th anniversary concert with, what's his name? The trumpet player.
hmm
Playing a solo on the end. I mean, what's this? Lighthouse with a free jazz trumpet at the end. Where have you heard this before? Oh, it's Hawkwind, mate. You know, Hawkwind have made that track their own. It's very good.
Well, uh, Tim,
It, it's strange, actually,
it's strange, yeah.
because there's Hawkwind and there's a couple of other cover versions of Lighthouse, right?
hmm
And finally, it is the most played song of mine
Lighthouse, yeah, sure.
because there's several versions of it, so several different types of fan are playing it in several different situations.
And did
And
generate? Do you remember Generator? Did it?
yes,
Did
of
it?
course.
Did it ever
Well,
become a rate? Did it ever become played? Was it played on radio in France or anywhere?
I've no idea. I've no idea. I don't think so.
Uh-huh.
Ah,
Well, I used to play when I used to. I used to play the
when
whole
I
album.
was
Mhm.
When I was finishing mixing Lighthouse on New Jerusalem, which is a track John Philip does not play on, right?
Right.
But John Philip said to me, you know, when you're dead, when people say Tim Blake, they'll think about this track.
Mhm.
And of course, in fact, he's right. You know, this was John Philip at 15. you know, but he shows up to be right. You know, he's a very talented musician, John Philip.
Yeah, yeah. He's a very special human being. Really, really uh,
Well,
warm.
too, yeah,
Yeah.
that too is. I must phone him sometime because he was ill actually
Hmm.
with all this rubbish,
Pandemic.
pandemics and
Yeah.
other things. You know, he was caught up in that and was ill.
Oh.
Not
Oh. So maybe he couldn't fly back.
well. I mean, he hasn't been out of his house for a couple of years, kind of thing. You know.
Hmm.
Yeah. And the rise in terrorism in the parts of the world he likes to hang out in is such that his sister is kind of, please don't go to Africa, John Philip, so he doesn't, you know.
Hmm.
Africa comes to him a lot, you know, but,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, but like he likes to go to Mali, where Salif Keita is, you know, but yeah, his sister, you know, there was a killing 3 days ago in Mali, you know,
Yeah.
it's,
He seems to have
it's
some
an
very good friends, some musician friends there. Yeah.
Well, you know, John Philip had found whatever it was he was looking for inside African music.
Yeah. Yes.
I think the time will come when he'll end up playing Debussy and Eric Satie on the piano and he'll have done the round circle. Because we all go back to our roots. This
Hmm.
is the thing
Hmm.
I'm discovering. We go back to what we first got interested in after a while.
Are there any three pieces that you would recommend to somebody who has no idea about what you're talking about, like Eric Satie? I grew up listening to classical music too, but then what are three pieces that you would not want to, be without as far as you can listen to music at home or apart from Satie? You've mentioned him a couple of times now.
Yes, I'll probably take the Gnossienne, the Gnossiennes rather than the Genopodes, but you know, I mean, I do like to, what I like is to have people come round who play the piano and play the piano I have
Yeah,
downstairs.
the one I,
And
yeah.
I'll cook while someone's playing the piano, and that
Uh-huh,
works. Yeah.
uh-huh.
That works fine. You know.
Any other dear
I
ones in
myself,
classical music or, romantic music?
it's very hard. I suppose one day I'm going to have to choose something.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
Mhm.
There's nothing I'm ashamed of, and even some of the records I was ashamed of, I've listened to them, and they're not that bad. So there, you know, there's no real reason to be ashamed of them.
I suppose not.
But no, I suppose I generally. I mean, I would like to have a radio. Yeah, and got one on my telephone. That works fine. Put my headphones in, and I'm lost for hours. You know, happy as you can get. You know, I like spoken word a lot too.
Ah, yeah.
The night before last, I was listening to extracts from Stuart Copeland's opera about Edison and Tesla.
Oh, I didn't know he had an opera on that. Oh,
Yeah,
oh
it
my God.
just opened in Berlin.
I was just going to watch the movie. There's a new movie with Ethan Hawke recently. I don't know if you are into movies.
Oh, I didn't know this, no.
Yeah.
But I mean, obviously, I've always been interested by
Mhm,
Tesla.
yeah.
I Generator was dedicated to Nikola Tesla.
Oh, oh, I didn't know that. Look at that.
And,
Wow.
you know, I mean, I think
Mhm.
this is a point of view, and my opinion engages nobody apart from myself. Right?
Mhm.
Was the theremin a serious instrument, or was it what Stalin thought was best to get his best spy engineer in the same realms as Nikolai Tesla in New York? I think the theremin was made for that.
Espionage.
Because the RCA model of theremin wasn't possible without Tesla's input because it's got tubes in it.
Yeah, that.
And although there still is somewhere in Serbo-Croatia or Czechoslovakia a Tesla factory making tubes, Tesla was working with RCA in making tubes, and tubes are an essential part of the theremin.
Mhm.
So this got, I mean, what Termin was, he's the best scientific spy there ever was, right? I mean, the story is, right, he married a Lydia Kavina, Richard, not, I got the name wrong. That's the young lady who plays,
If it isn't Clara Rockmore either, they were just friends.
no, no, he married a black dancer.
Ah,
Is
yes.
it Latvia Williams or something? Letitia Williams. She
Mhm.
became she became the dance teacher in the Alvin Ailey All American Theatre Company. She became the ballet mistress there.
Lavinia Williams, you're right. Yes.
Lavinia. That's why I said Lydia. It's so close, you see, in my age. Right. Now then, Lavinia Williams. So he married her and then he disappeared.
Yeah.
And it seems he spent quite some time being told off for marrying pretty black girls and not sending information back to Moscow. And and that may have gone on for quite some time. But back in the 50s, the Americans discovered that the Russians put a passive listening device in the boardrooms of their embassies, and this was Tesla back on the warpath. This was Termin back on the warpath,
Hmm.
And I was reading an article a couple of nights ago on the BBC about the Cuba syndrome,
Cuba.
which is a lot of personnel indifferent but originally Cuban, like CIA personnel working in the Cuban embassy, the American embassy in Havana, for instance. They started complaining of an illness,
Hmm.
which seems to have been caused by exposition to microwaves. Well, Termin, at the end of his career, when he built the thing, this was a passively vibrating membrane which he bounced microwaves onto and off to, and the guy could hear by Doppler the sound of what was going on in the room modulated in the returning waveform. Well, perhaps they found some kind of other listening device using microwaves, only it seems it's making people ill. And if I was in the CIA, I'd be looking that way. You know, because this is the whole thing about Leon Theremin, is he can do it without touching.
It is, yeah.
And, you know.
More, yeah, he can make more than sound, you mean?
Well, now, anyway, I would like to see the new Moog Theremin, the Clara Heritage, but they're not giving me one. But already now, my theremin is midified.
Midified, yeah.
So I can play synths with it. Though finally in the Hawkwind tour, which is my last trip out, I wasn't using the MIDI device at all.
So you can.
It's quite good to have EMS sounds on the theremin. You know, that's quite clever too, you know. That uses the MIDI device. But now they're getting, you know, they're getting MIDI and pitch and voltage together themselves. They've done it through several models. Now they've got one that's got it all on board, and I'd like to see that model.
Oh, I hope you get to see that, get one, maybe play one, and maybe we can
Give them £1,500 fucking pounds. That's how you get to see it.
maybe.
I've been dropping hints at Moog for 2 years. I don't have one, so you know, you give them the money and you get what you buy.
Well, hopefully you'll get to play one day. Tim, thanks so much for your time, your generosity, and the very nice and interesting and incredible stories. And I don't know what to say. Thanks again for all the music you're giving us.
That's what we do at my age, you know. Raconter, you know. I'm a raconteur. There you go.
Très bien. Très bien.
Yeah, well, you know, Happy Chili.
Yeah.
I mean, I really enjoyed
the chat.
Yeah, Brazil.
Yeah.
I particularly like Fortaleza.
Yeah.
Which is up north and so tropical.
Maybe you come back one day.
I found Sao Paulo, where I spent most of a week. For me, who live in the countryside, it really is a big fucking city, you know.
Yeah, never been there, but it's really big, really big.
It takes an hour to get to the airport just flying, you know. It's that big, you know. It's a huge place, and so you know. But Fortaleza as well. It was really rainbow. And you know, my daughter, who is mixed race and everything. I mean, when I was in Fortaleza, it's the closest I've been to my daughter's grandmother, because she's in Guyana, which is just outside of Brazil. You know.
Yeah. Well, hopefully you could come back one day. I don't know. Fingers crossed. No one
Come
knows.
to Chile. No, I don't mind coming to Chile. You know, it's
yeah, sure, you must. You must one day. Things are really just starting to go back to.
I don't really want to play in the southeast. Is it Ushuaia, the south of Chile or somewhere, which is just before the South Pole? I don't want to go all the way down there, but up the top I would quite
Yeah.
like.
Yeah, in Punta Arenas maybe the more extreme place.
It's a
Uh,
good place to be on horses, I believe, Chile, yes?
yeah, it is. It is. We have big place, nice lands where you can enjoy nature. But there are so many issues that are going on these days. These thermonuclear centrals being built and the natural spots being, affected. Yeah, everywhere,
I
not
have
only.
one, I have one 28 kilometers away. They're cool, man.
Yeah.
It's global warming the problem now. It's not, I mean, the French nuclear power stations have not blown up.
Yes.
That's all I.
Yeah.
The Russians have, the Americans have. The one in Fukushima was American. The first time I went to Japan, which was 72, that's when the 3 Mile Island thing was. We know American nuclear security is not fine. So
Hmm. Hmm.
if you go anywhere else but France to buy your nuclear power station, you're mad. But in this country, we have high speed trains. We have, it's very good, the electricity.
Good.
It's a
Good. Okay, Tim. I'm going to stop recording now, but I want to ask you a couple of questions. So thanks for the time. Thanks for being on my channel, and I hope that many people are going to be glad to hear you and hopefully to see you one day. So,
Yes, well, there you go.
mhm,
Uh,
yeah,
my pleasure, my friend. Right now, I'm going to have a drink and make dinner.
yeah, because now
I
it's like kind of late there. Like, what time is it there?
don't know.
9.
Yeah, there you go. No, 8:15.
Okay, okay, okay.
We've been 2.25 hours. Okay, well,